Alright, so let me just check. I'm checking if I'm already live. Hello, hello. This is the first time I'm going to be streaming in. Am I live? I don't know. I think I am streaming, but I'm checking it on my own channel. I think I am streaming, but I'm checking it on my own channel. I think I am streaming. I can hear my. I'm checking it on my own channel. I think I am streaming. I can hear my. All right, I'm live. I'm sorry that took a while. I'm a minute in already, but this is, as I mentioned, the final episode of. Where is my? I don't have. Let me just put on my props. This is the final episode of, or the final episode of the Read With Me series for The White is for Magic, of course. Just for The White is for Magic. Maybe I'll be doing this for other novels that I would be coming across, but we are going to be reading The White Candle. No, The White is for Magic by Laurie Faris Dolores. As you can see in the thumbnail of this video, this is the final chapters, because I'll be reading everything from this live. Hopefully, this is the first time I'm using Prism Live Studio as my streaming studio. Let us check. I'm just going to check if we will be able to see. Yeah, this is The White is for Magic finale. Let's see if that is showing up. Yeah, I hope that is showing up in my screen. Yeah, there you go. And we are also. I'm also going to add the chat here. This is the first time I'm using this, guys. I'm sorry if a lot of. Yeah, let me just mute myself there. And how was the sound? I'm thinking that this is going to be the appropriate one, but let's just add that. Yeah, I can hear it now. And then I think everything's good. he's also the ones. I am so distracted here. I'm sorry. I'll just not have that one. Let's just not have music. I think that's too loud. But we are just going to be continuing on with those things in mind. And she is looking for her mom, whether she has gone to a bakery to buy croissants. But yeah. And then we are also going to know more about the Cheyenne. I've looked up the definition or the pronunciation of Seance. So Seance is the meeting place. So that is the first time I've heard about that word and the first time I'll be using it. But PJ apparently joined the group of Corey and Tobias because he wants to know more about it. And yeah, apparently they want Stacy to actually join the reenactment. And that is just so weird in so many levels. We have heard about Donovan's reappearance, so they are doing something to get him out of the prison. I think he's not in the prison, he is in detention center, so we don't know what is going to happen yet. But would Stacy go to the reenactment, and what would she do? Alright, so let us start with chapter 39. We end up talking to PJ about the whole seance incident for another half hour or so, just until Drea comes in. I need to talk to you. She sits down next to me on the bed. Her normally perfectly pouted lips are now more grimaced, and her aura's dreary olive color. She stares down at her shoes, melon, peach, sneakers to match her scarf, and then picks at me. Okay, I say, even though I know I don't have much time. We move outside onto the front steps where it's quiet and sit there a few moments, just looking out the lawn. I'm sorry about what happened yesterday, she finally says. You know, when you came in and I was with Chad, what did happen? She shakes her head. Nothing, really. Then why do you need to apologize? Because maybe I wanted something to happen. Oh. She turns to face me. I'm still in love with him, Stacy. I clamp my eyes shut and look away, feeling her words burn straight through my heart. I'm sorry. I can't help it. I've tried. I've told myself that he's yours, that you're the one who's with him now, that I'm over him. But I'm not. I still love him. I think I always will. I bite my lip and stare down at my hands, at the chapped skin on my palms. I feel a nest of tears hatch behind my eyes. I knew it. I knew it would only be a matter of time before Drea and I had this conversation. It's just I wasn't prepared for it to happen now, in the middle of everything, when I need more than ever for the constants in my life to stay just that constant. Say something, she says, looking away. What do you want me to say? A part of me wants to ask her if Chad feels the same, but I can't, because I'm not sure I could handle the answer right now. Have you told Chad how you feel? I ask. She shakes her head, but I think he knows. I think he's always known. I nod because I know she's right, because she does love Chad, maybe even more than I do. So what now? I don't know. I don't know what he's thinking. Sometimes I feel like he feels the same, but then he sees you and I feel like everything changes. I sink back against the step and take a breath, thinking how this whole scene feels so familiar. How it was just last year that I put her through this exact same thing. And then I think how oddly okay I feel I am going to be about it. How maybe I've sensed it all along that Chad and I aren't meant to be together. Not the way the two of them are. Just tell me you don't hate me, she says. I manage to look at her neck, at the brownish mole on her chin, and then look up into her eyes. She's crying too. There's a trickle of tears running down her cheek. I don't hate you, I say, wiping away the last of my tears. I don't hate her. I can't, even though a part of me wants to. After Drea talks, after my talk with Drea, so this is now chapter 40. I nurse my wounds as best as I can with a few breaths of lavender, a couple dabs of patchouli, oil behind my ears and at the end of my neck, and several droplets of rose water at my temples. I tell myself that it's good that Drea is being honest with me, because maybe it's forcing me to be honest with myself. This, coupled with the aromatherapy recipe I've got swimming on my skin, helps center me a bit, helps me refocus on the essential. I take a deep breath and return one of Jacob's many phone calls. He tells me he's reconsidered joining forces to do a spell and wants me to come to his room ASAP. I don't stop to ask I don't stop to ask him how he plans to sneak me inside. Instead, I just hung up, grabbed the news, the letters, and the cassette, and cram a bunch of random spell supplies, a handful of vanilla beans, sandwich bags full of dried basil and dill, and a tiny bottle of sesame oil into my backpack. When I get to his dorm, he's standing outside waiting for me. I've got everything ready in my room, he says, but you need to wait here until I can get rid of the RD. I wait several minutes until Jacob signals to me and it's safe to go in. And down a narrow hallway, we end up passing by a few boys, mostly, I think, who give me weird looks, ogling me extra hard like they've never seen a girl before. The last door on the left. He unlocks it and we go in. A typical boys' room. Posters of classic rock bands line the walls. The Beatles, the Doors, the Police. There are also dirty clothes piled high on the floor, neutral shades of coffee and blue, and the requisite Sports Illustrated swimsuit calendar thumbtacked to a bulletin board. My roommate's a slob, he says, closing the door behind us. This is mostly all his stuff. Where is he? I ask, looking toward the spell supplies gathered on what is obviously Jacob's bed. Out? He's always out. I barely even ever see this guy. I nod, taking note of how nervous Jacob seems. He fumbles with his keys, dropping them once before managing them inside his pocket. Was it hard to get rid of RD? I ask, hoping to enlighten the tension. Without so much as glancing in my direction, he kicks a clear pathway through the piles of clothes on the floor leading to his bed. Not really, I just told him one of the toilets on the first floor overflowed. Did it? He nods. Thanks to a pair of briefs. Lovely, I say. Tell him that. I just hope he has a pair of galoshes handy. Jacob folds his arms and looks over the spell supplies sprawled out over a cranberry-colored square of fabric that takes up half of the bed. I brought some spell stuff of my own, I say, unzipping the main compartment of my backpack. I have everything, he says. How about the news and the letters and stuff? I ask, ready to take them out. He shakes his head. We have all we need right here. What are we going to do? I ask, taking a seat on the corner of his bed. I'd like to do a spell that focuses on your past. I'm thinking between your dreams about Mara and the letter referring to some past promise that's where the answer lies. That's funny, I say. My mother said the same thing. He nods, almost like he knows. So, where do we start? I ask. Jacob turns to light a stick of incense. That's when I notice the chunky white candle sitting atop his night table. It looks exactly like mine. You have a white candle, I say. You seem surprised. It's just that it looks one of my grandmother gave me, that's all. He swallows hard and turns around to face me. Ask. No. Why? Yeah, I swallow. He's looking at me so purposely, almost through me, like he can see right into my soul. Because it's not time. Then when will be the time? Don't you know? He asks. White is for magic. I feel my lower lip quiver, just hearing my grandmother's words come from his mouth. How do you know that? What do you mean? Don't you think so too? I don't know. I mean, that's what my grandmother said it meant. But that doesn't make sense. I continue. I mean, why does there have to be some special time to light a white candle? We do magic all the time. At least I do. Jacob smiles like he can sense some frustration. Magic is more than just spells, don't you think? We'd be cheating ourselves so much if that's all we thought it was. No, I say. I know there's more to it. And I do know there's more, like the magical elements of spirit and nature, like the moon, casting its light when you need to see. But I still don't understand what my grandmother was trying to tell me. True magic, he says, encompasses so much. It encompasses all the wonderful little things that can't be explained. Pure things. I nod, still waiting for the light to click on in my head. So maybe you're experienced some specific aspect of magic before you lit the candle. Like what? Jacob turns away to arrange a group of rocks on his desk. His voice low, like there's a part of him that doesn't want me to hear it. Love. I gulp at the thought. My uncle told me to wait for before lighting mine. Your uncle? He nods, gathering the rocks up into a clump. My uncle and I were close growing up. He was really the only one I could relate to. And he's the one who gave you the candle. Jacob turns around to face me. He nods, his cheeks a dull flushed. On my 12th birthday, I feel myself start to tremble. My heart quickens inside my chest, stirring up my nerves, rattling through my bones. I fold my arms and broaden my stance in an effort to regain composure. I wonder if he can sense it, how shaken I am, how much alike we both are. Anyway, he says, taking a deep breath to change the subject. Before we begin the spell, there needs to be complete trust. Trust? My head is spinning. He nods. In order to combine our energies on any spell, in order for it to work, we have to be able to trust one another completely. Okay, I say. Not okay, he corrects. Because I know you don't. I open my mouth to object, but I can't. Is inside me that's holding back from trusting him completely. Trust has always been a tough one for me. It's okay, he says, because I don't completely trust you either. What? I mean, after all this time I've spent questioning him and his motives, reasons why he'd pack up his life and move all the way across the country, it just never dawned on me. The possibility that he didn't trust me. If I trusted you completely, he begins, I wouldn't have hesitated when you asked me to do a spell together. I told you spells are private to me. I've never shared them with anyone. So, what are we even doing here? I ask. If you don't think a collaborative spell will work. I didn't say it wouldn't work. Jacob sits down beside me on the bed. I only said it wouldn't work if we didn't trust each other. So, how are we supposed to trust each other now? He motions to the spell supplies. That's what this stuff is for. Before we do a spell that focuses on your past, we need to do one that bonds us together with trust. Spells don't create trust, I say, standing up. This one will. He stands up as well, landing smack dab in front of my face. Eye to eye, lip to lip. He smells like coconut oil. I feel my lip tremble, and I think he sees it too. The corners of my mouth curl slightly upward as if to smile. Maybe we should get started then, I say, stepping back. I sit back down on the bed and begin fumbling with squarish jar of some sort. What do we do first? Jacob plugs a hot plate into the wall by his desk. We're going to make body paint. Body paint? He pulls a tank top from the top drawer of his dresser and tosses it to me. So you won't get any clothes dirty. I'm supposed to wear this? He nods and pulls another tank top out for himself. I don't think so. This is what I'm talking about, he says. You need to trust me. He takes a step forward toward me and reaches for my hand. Yeah, I have as much to lose in this as you do. Your life isn't at stake, I say. No, he says, but yours is. His light blue eyes penetrate mine so deeply I have to look away. I'll turn around and you can change over there. He nods toward the corner of the room. As soon as he turns around, I move in that direction, just to the right of the door, thinking how, if I wanted to, I could just walk out. But of course I don't. I pull my sweater over my head and slip the tank top on over my bra, reminding myself that I still have a boyfriend, that I shouldn't be feeling this way, that there are far more pressing things to concern myself with that at the moment. The tank hangs down mid-thigh and smells like him, like coconut oil and lemongrass incense. It droops a bit low under my arms, revealing the sides of my bra. I tuck the fabric of the tank top into the spandex and turn to glance at myself in the mirror, at my long dark hair, at my golden brown eyes and angular cheeks. The tank top hugs a bit at the chest and hips, and makes my skin look lighter in color, almost creamy. And for some inexplicable reason, standing here on a mound of sweatpants mixed with t-shirts in his clothes in his room under these conditions, I couldn't feel more beautiful. Okay, I say, almost eager for him to see me, to see this part of me. But instead, he just pulls off his shirt and changes into a tank as well. I look away, feeling a swell of heat move down the length of my spine, thinking how Chad used to make me feel this way, how that seems so long ago now. Okay, he says. I'll set. The tank hugs just slightly around his chest, showing off the tops of his arms like balls of muscle beneath the skin. I allow him to look at me as well. I wonder how he sees me, what I look like to him. A friend, a girl with a boyfriend, a puzzle he has yet to solve. Let's get started, he says, ever respectful, keeping focused on my eyes. He takes the ceramic pot from the center of the scarf and holds it out to me. There's an olive green powder inside, like colored flour, but it smells more like hay. Have you ever used henna before? I shake my head. It's perfect for body paint. He pours a small pitcher of liquid into the pot. Rainwater, he explains. And then he adds in a couple tables, tablespoons of instant coffee, a few squeezes of a lemon, eucalyptus oil, honey, cardamom, and a cinnamon stick. He mixes it all up with a wooden spoon and then he sets the pot on the hot plate. It'll only be a few minutes, he says. Heating it up this way just allows the paint to darken. I look inside the pot as he stares, watching the liquid swallow up the greenish powder. The ingredients fold into the mix like watered down cake batter, turning everything a darkish brown. It almost looks good enough to eat, I say. That means it's ready. He takes the pot by the handle and sets it on a ceramic dish. What are we going to do? I ask, like it isn't obvious. First, he says, we need to focus on what we already know about the impending danger, and then we need to ask ourselves what we'd like to know. The what we'd like to know part seems pretty obvious, I say. Is it really though? He continues to mix the body paint with wooden spoon and then dips his finger into the center just right. Just right. Of course it's obvious, I say, getting back to the subject. I want to know who's been sending me stuff, who's watching me, and what's going to happen to me exactly. I'll bet you already know the answers to some of those questions. He holds up his index finger, an ample helping of thick, brown body paint on the tip. Are you ready? For what? I ask, leaning back. If we're going to build trust, we need to paint on each other. We need to physically show one another what we know, what we desire to know. We need to be vulnerable to one another. You're kidding me, right? Since when will painting on another person's body parts make one vulnerable to anything? Jacob looks a bit dejected by my response, which makes me feel a little like mega bitch. I don't know what is wrong with me sometimes. I've had Amber and Trey engage in plenty of seemingly bizarre spell stunts. Plus, wasn't it me who buried a potato just the other day? Who made a wax doll and slept with him under my pillow? So why should I have a problem with this? With his muddied finger, Jacob draws a spiral in the center of his palm, one with 5 layers, and that extends toward his wrist. I dip my finger into the body paint as well and draw a spiral that matches this. I hold my palm out to him as a peace offering. Shall we start over? Jacob hesitates, but then places his palm up against mine, the heat from his hand penetrating right into my own. There's just one rule, he says. What's that? Henna stains big time. So you have to be sure about the images that you draw, purposeful about them. Deal. I pull up my hair into a rubber band and we spend the next several minutes throwing down each other's arms at the back of each other's neck and pulling up the tank tops on each other's backs. I draw the noose on his forearm, the letter M where the back of his neck meets his shoulders, the words "I'm watching you" down his left bicep, and the weathered gray basement door from the nightmares on his back, just above his waist. Jacob does the same on me. I can feel lines and swirls being formed along my shoulders and at the nape of my neck as he parts my hair, triangle shapes and checkered patterns under my arms tickling me, giving me goosebumps. I wonder if he can see my bra, if he notices the heat I'm sure is visible all over my face. Jacob turns me around so that we face one another, his finger raised high to draw. He takes a step inward. We're standing so close now. I can feel his breath on my forehead. Jacob looks at me so intensely that I almost want to make a joke, release the tension around us. I feel myself swallow, feel my lower lip quiver, just inches from his mouth. He lowers his finger to my front, right beside one of the tank straps. He looks at me to make sure I'm okay and then draws something that extends across my collarbone, just below my neck, and close to the opposite shoulder. At first, I tried to figure out what it might be, but then I sort of lose track of the lines. Are you ready to go on with the spell? Jacob asks. Do you trust me yet? Do you? I ask. Jacob leans in even closer, still looking at me, into my eyes. His breath is warm on my skin and smells like cinnamon sticks and honey, like the paint. Do you really have to ask? I shake my head slightly and the tips of our noses touch. I close my eyes and slightly rest my forehead against his. Jacob runs his hands down the length of my bare arms. I do the same, moving my fingers along the nape of his neck, enjoying the smell of the paint on each other's skin, the way the stickiness feels under my fingertips. Jacob stops a moment to move my hair off my shoulders. He looks at me, and I close my eyes, feel his mouth on mine, sending a million tiny tingles all over my skin. His kiss is like warm honey and mocha on my tongue. Only better, like nothing I've ever quite tasted. I wrap my arms around him completely, feeling his shoulder blades through the tank top, the shaved hair at the nape of his neck. I open my eyes for a moment and glance over his shoulder at the white candle sitting by his side, and a gush of emotion comes over me all at once. How I've never felt this way before. I mean, this way. The way my heart has swelled up inside my chest like it couldn't get any bigger. The way I'd love to just crawl up inside his skin and breathe his breath. The way I'd give anything right now to light that white candle. Are you thinking what I'm thinking? He asks. I think so, I say. That's when the door flies open, breaking the moment, slicing through our embrace. I let out a gasp. It's Tobias. What's going on in here? He asks, his left eye twitching at us. This is my roommate, Jacob explains, taking a step away from me. Sorry, Tobias says. Didn't mean to interrupt anything scandalous. Just wanted to pick up a couple of my things. He looks around the room, picks a baseball cap off the floor, and sets it on his head. So what did I interrupt exactly? You live with him? I say, turning to Jacob. Maybe I should go. Tobias says. Don't want to get in the middle of anything sticky. No, I say. I'm the one who's leaving. So soon? Tobias asks. Why? Is Chad waiting for you? Don't go, Jacob says. I can't believe this is happening. I glance at myself in the mirror, at the picture of what Tobias is seeing. That's when I notice what Jacob has drawn at my front. I have to go. I grab my sweater and bullet from the door before either of them can stop me. Alright, so that is so weird. Chapter 40 is so weird. That is the end of it. I'm just so surprised. So Tobias knows a lot of things about Stacy's dreams and how he is roommates with Jacob. So maybe one of them is lying. I've just scratched off Jacob from my suspects list. Now he is. And what is he doing? Why are they doing that? I think, what did he write and at front of her collarbone? So I just wanted to know. I'm just going to read through this. I'm sorry. We are now at chapter 41. I'm just gonna get into it. I don't have any thoughts right now because I'm so confused what is happening. Okay. Right, maybe let me just fix my hair because alright. When I get back to the room, no one's there. I pull off my sweater and stand in front of the mirror, looking over all of the Jacob's drawings. A moon, a set of keys, a giant X, the rune for partnership, at a smallish structure of some sort. Maybe the tool shed from my nightmare, since there's a hammer just below it. But the drawings that disturb me the most are the ones on my chest. A crudely drawn car, a tree, a sticky figured girl jumping rope. I sit down on the edge of my bed and try to piece it all together. It's all becoming clear now, just like my mother said. The answers to what I need to know are in my past. When Maura told Miles that she wanted to get out of the car that day, he got angry and started driving faster, taking more turns, making Maura more nervous, more sick. It wasn't long before the car crashed into a tree. Maura flew through the windshield. The doctor said she didn't die right away. Miles, with barely even a scratch, panicked and ended up carrying her body through the woods just a couple blocks from our neighborhood. He locked her up in a tool shed instead of taking her to the hospital, where she could have been saved. It wasn't a few moments before her body was found, and by that time it was too late. She was already dead. Without any past criminal record, Miles was charged with motor vehicle homicide, the kind where they say negligence is to blame, and sentenced to 7 to 10 years in prison, eligible for parole in 4. 4 years ago, last month, I clasped my stomach and massaged my throat, feeling the sensation to get sick as well. Just like my nightmares, I fished into my spell drawer for a rag and a bottle of olive oil. I doused the rag with the oil and then wiped the henna stains from my neck, chest, shoulders, and arms. The designs begin to lift and lighten a bit. I pull on a turtleneck sweater to cover it all up, and then grab the bowl of lavender pellets by my bed. I rub them between my fingers, breathing the scent in, trying to soothe myself. I wonder what all of this means. If Miles is already out. Or maybe someone knows about all of this. Maybe someone, even Jacob himself, found out all these pieces of my life, researched all my old ghosts, and is using them to try and drive me insane. There are certainly plenty of losers around here who have researched the events of last year, who have tried to pry into my life. But is that even possible? Could Jacob have found out all the details of Miles' trial? Is he maybe working with Corey and them? My head fuzzes over with questions. I lie back on my bed and to try and think through at least a few of them. I'm pretty sure the letter M is for Mara. At least that's what I sensed in my nightmare when I saw her drawing. Like jumping rope and singing, drawing on the sidewalk with crayons was just one of the things that Mara liked to do. I'm also pretty sure that the words to the Miss Mary Mac song were distorted per Amber's baby corn theory, that it's my mind's way of telling me that I'm scared, twisting things around to create the worst, most frightening possible scenario. Something straight out of a Freddy Krueger movie. But what I still want to know is why anyone would want to cause harm to me. Why would anyone go through all the trouble of researching my past? What do they really have to gain from it? And then remember something I had tried to block out. The letter. I sit up in bed, the memory rushing at me all at once. I wrote a letter to Miles Parker just days after the sentencing. An angry letter from a tormented, guilt-ridden 13-year-old girl telling him how angry I was about the pathetic sentence and how I had sensed all along that she had been kidnapped. That the person who did it had hidden her away in a tool shed. I told him how I'd have to live with the guilt of knowing all this and not doing anything about it for as long as I lived. And then I promised him something in the last line of the letter. I promised that when he got out, I'd come after him to make him pay, to see the justice finally served. Is that the promise referred to in the letter I got? I pick up the phone to call someone, anyone, my mother at at her hotel. But the person at the front desk tells me she isn't in her room. I hung up and bury my head in my hands. My forehead is pounding. I want to be sick. I try sipping some ginger ale, but it just makes it worse. I rush into the bathroom just in time before the contents of my stomach empty out into the toilet bowl. I sit back on my heels and hear myself sob out loud because this is so confusing. Because I don't know where else to turn or whom I can trust. I look down at my amethyst ring, wishing my grandmother were here to help me, wishing my mother were by my side right now. We're just moving on to chapter 42. Instead of feeling better, the urge to be sick remains thick in my throat, and my head still aches, a throbbing pain that makes everything else feel heavy and cold. I set a warm compress over my forehead and lie down in bed. The covers up over my shoulders to stifle the chill. I close my eyes, which eases me a bit, maybe a little sleep. Even just for a few minutes will do me good, will help me put things into perspective. But a few minutes turn into several hours. I wake up to the sound of the phone ringing. I spring up. The warm compress, now cool, drops from my forehead. I don't even think I moved once in my sleep. There's a wrapped sandwich and a bag of chips from the cafeteria at the foot of my bed. I smile, knowing that either Amber or Drea or both are looking after me. The phone continues to ring. I lean over to reach for it, noticing that my headache has subsided a bit, that my stomach has eased some. Hello? Hello, Stacy? Says a whispery male voice. Who is this? We have Drea. What? You heard me. And if you don't do exactly what I say, she'll be dead. I almost can't believe what I'm hearing. It's like a bad horror flick come to life. I can tell there's a rag held over the receiver to muffle the sound, so I can't quite recognize the voice. Who is this? I repeat. You'll find out when you get here. Tell me who this is or I'm calling the police. Do that and Drea will die. The caller says. How do I know you really have her? I ask. How do you know that I don't? I glance over the Drea's bed. It's just how she left it this morning. Come to the O'Brien building at 11 tonight. The caller continues. Enter the building through the window of room 104 and then go to the French room. Is this Corey? I ask, glancing at the clock. It's just after 9. Stacy, just do what he says. It's Drea's voice. Drea? I told you I had her. I told you I had her. The whispery male voice comes back on the phone. And if you call the police, she'll be dead, just like Veronica Lehman. The phone clicks as he hangs up. I hang up too. I know this must have something to do with Corey and Tobias and their seance. They want me to go to the scene of the crime at the precise time that it happened, so they can reenact the night Veronica died, just like PJ warned. They've kidnapped Drea because it was probably the only way they could think of to get me over there on the anniversary of Veronica's death. Plus, it sort of works for the whole recreating the scene thing. Saying that Donovan kidnapped Drea shortly after he killed Veronica, I pick up the phone and dial PJ's number, looking for Amber, hoping maybe PJ can help me in some way. But he isn't there. I hang up and call Chad. Not there either. I try Jacob's line, but get a busy line or signal. I slam the phone down, panic starting to set in. I seriously contemplate calling campus police, but I don't. Because I don't want to risk it. I can't, not now, not tonight. I grab the crystal cluster rock and my sachet of time for courage and mentally prepare myself to head over to the O'Brien building to find Drea and put an end to this whole science fiasco once and for all. I've left a note for Amber telling her where I've gone, and I've left phone messages for Chad and PJ. I have no idea where everyone is tonight. I just know I can't wait around. If today is supposed to be my day to die, I better get started changing the future. I'll just have to rescue Drea along the way. I stuff a flashlight into my bag and close and lock the door behind me. Stopping just long enough to look up at the clock. It's 9:30. The caller said to get there at 11, but I have no intention of playing by his screwed up rules. I decide to take the bike path behind our dorm since it cuts a few minutes off the hike over the main buildings. And just as soon as I start walking, I hear someone following behind me. The sound of footsteps, hardwood heels, I think clumping toward me on the pavement. I stop. I glance back, but I don't see anything and I no longer hear anyone. I turn back around the clasp and crystal in my pocket, reminding myself of its protective energy, doing my best to distract myself from what could very well be normal everyday paranoia. I breathe the night air in, noticing how frigid it is tonight. The sky is an icy black color, like it could crack open at any second and sprinkle down a helping of snow. I knot the knitted scarf around my neck and fold my arms in front, the crystal still gripped in my palm. The footsteps start up again. I quicken my pace. The person following does the same. Faster now, the pathway narrows a bit through the brush, making it darker, colder, more confining. I focus on the area ahead of me. The back parking lot of the library is just ahead. I quicken my pace even more until I'm running, until I can no longer hear the person behind me. Finally, I come to the end of the path. It spits out into the parking lot. And looking around for someone or anyone, a police cruiser maybe, I turn to glance back toward the path. It's too dark, too laden with brush. I clench the crystal in my palm to temper the shaking inside me, the pounding of my heart. Then I cut across the parking lot and move around to the front of the library. There's a couple of underclassmen standing outside, laughing it up over some stupid joke. I couldn't be more happy to see them, to see anyone. I'm thinking they sense my fear. They stop to watch me as I bound up the steps, 3 at a time, my face twisted as though I might cry out at any moment. I can feel it on my lips. Breathing hard, I make it through both sets of double doors and turn to gaze out toward the front of the building. No one, just the same kids still watching me, probably wondering what's wrong. I go to the on-campus phone on the wall and try calling Chad, but I get his voicemail again. I call our room. More voicemail. And Jacob's line is still busy. I hang up and peek back out toward the front of the building. The underclassmen have left, and I can't seem to spot anyone else. I move out onto the front steps and gaze up at the O'Brien building, set back a bit from the other buildings, or at least it feels that way. Darker, quieter, more secluded. I take a giant breath and make my way back out, past the tennis court, and onto the pathway that leads to the building. This time, I feel like I'm alone. The footsteps that followed before are no longer with me. Maybe it was just my imagination. This is what I tell myself. Anyway, with each step that brings me closer to the building, it's so weird being back here. Walking across the lawn that surrounds it, remembering how it was only a year ago that I sat behind Veronica Lehman in French class, her starchy, hair-sprayed, glued hair resting in a clump on my desk whenever she slouched down in her seat. Only a year ago that I found her dead on that same classroom floor. I swallow the ball of fear in my mouth and walk around the side of the building by the soccer field. I didn't think it would be this hard. I mean, I'm sure I see the building on a regular basis. I have to pass by it to go to the classes. Have to see it out of the corner of my eye on my way to the library or on the walks across the campus. But I mostly try to avoid it. Try to look the other way or hold my breath until it's out of sight. Plus, this feels much different. Tonight I have to go in. I take the flashlight from my bag and move around to the back of the building, passing the window of room 104, looking for some other opening. I know exactly why the caller wanted me to come in that way. It's because that's the window I entered last year when I went to save Veronica. When instead of saving her, I ended up finding her already dead. I'm so sure it's one of them who's taken Drea, Corey, and his clones, bound on some ridiculous mission to raise Veronica from the dead, to recreate the scene they've been obsessing about, probably since it first struck the news. It's much darker back here. The spotlights that shine at the front and sides of the building too shallow to reach behind it. I aim my light toward the windows and doors, wondering if there might be another way in, hoping Corey and them don't see the flashlight beam. I stop when I notice that one of the windows is open a crack. I take a deep breath and peer over my shoulder. I don't see anyone, just a wooded acreage that surrounds the campus. But being back here, in almost complete darkness, I can't shake the feeling that someone's watching me. I take a few steps closer to the window, feeling now more than ever that there's no turning back. Okay, so we are now to the last 3 chapters. Let's just continue. Chapter 43. Alright, let me just fix my seat. Oops. Alright. Okay. Chapter 43. Using the soft beam of the flashlight to direct me, I hoist myself up onto the windowsill and crawl through. The hard rubber soles of my shoes smacking down against the linoleum flooring. I aim the beam around the perimeter of the room. It's Senora Sullivan's Spanish room. There are bits of Spanish-speaking culture still alive on the walls. Magazine cutouts of tortillas and frijoles. Maps of Peru and Argentina, and as though by fate, a giant poster of El Dia de los Muertos, the Day of the Dead. I head toward the door at the front of the room. It's just after 10. I still have almost an hour before they are expecting to see me. An hour to find Drea and get the hell out of here before we both end up as pawns in their game. Before I end up dead. I carefully wrap my hand around the doorknob and twist. The door squeaks slightly as I pull it open. But what cements me in place is the thumping noise coming from the just outside the window where I entered. I quickly click my flashlight off and wait a few moments. The thumping stops, like whoever is out there can sense my suspicion. I clench the sachet of time in my pocket and step out into the hallway. It's completely dark except for the few glowing exit signs at both ends of the building. I suspect Corey and his friends are already here, probably getting things ready for their big night. I just wonder where they have Drea. The flashlight gripped in my hand, I do my best to navigate my way down the main corridor, toward the French room, without having to use it. I'm pretty sure no one can see me in such darkness. I'm just hoping no one will hear me as well. I feel like it's so loud inside my head right now. My heart pumping, my stomach clenching, a screaming sensation behind my eyes. I step on something that breaks my concentration, making me jump. I step again. It's soft beneath my feet. I scoot down to feel what it is, a cloth of some sort, like a tarp for painting. I reach out and feel the space around me. A couple cans of paint, I think. A few paint rollers, some rags, and a rope. My heart starts pounding, thrashing inside my chest because I know just what it is. I swallow hard and inch my grip down the length until I feel it. Them. Handles. A jumping rope. I clamp my hand over my mouth to stop the screaming inside my head. Why are they doing this? How do they know? A whimper escapes from my throat. I do my best to crawl free of everything without making any more noise. Voices come from the end of the hallway, whispery voices that I can't identify. I wrestle myself up and move toward them, past the main entrance and now clearly back on linoleum flooring. There's a scratching sound just to the right of me, an amplified scratching, like the sound is emanating from this speaker. I stop. My heart wallops inside my chest. "Hello, Stacy?" says the voice from the loudspeaker. His voice. Donovan. "Welcome back," he says. "I'm watching you." My chin shakes, my knees soften, I feel my head start to spin, like my world could have come crashing down at any moment. "I'm watching you," he says. Still paralyzed in place. It's everything cannot I cannot do to cry out. Not to switch on the flashlight and surrender my fate. But I can't. Not now. Not with Drea depending on me. I move further down the hallway. The French room is just a few yards away now. I slowly approach the doorway. Visions of Veronica Lehman lying dead on the floor heavy on my mind. The pool of blood surrounding her head, the clay planter, what Donovan hit her with, still intact on the floor beside me. My mouth fills up with fear. A sour, salty paste at the base of my tongue that makes me want to leave. I take a deep breath and stand just to the right of the French room door, mentally readying myself to peer in. From this angle, I can see candles lit at the back of the room. I take a step closer. More candles, a circle of them in the middle of the floor, designating perhaps the sacred space for the seance. I'm just about to click on my flashlight to see if there is any sign of Drea when I notice a few candles move at the front of the room. They're lighting the faces of Emma and Trish, who hold them mid-air and whisper back and forth about the night's plan. How Veronica's spirit will tell them what to do. And scratching sound begins again on the loudspeaker. "Hello, Stacy?" Donovan's voice repeats. Is she even here yet? Emma asks. It's only 10:15. Trish moves to the sacred circle and takes a seat at the head. I step back into the hallway and press my spine up against the wall as though the darkness alone isn't enough to conceal me, as though the wall has the power to swallow me up whole. I do my best to breathe in and out, to calm this pumping in my chest and to hold it together when all I see and when all I really want to do is fall apart. My only hope is that Amber, Chad, and PJ have gotten my message by now, that they've done the sensible thing and called campus police, that they are on their way. Okay, so let us just briefly talk about this one. Um, or maybe I should not. This is we are already on the scene, so let us just continue with this one until the end of the chapter, and let's just save up my thoughts because I have a lot of things going on my head. I feel like Jacob is still here. I feel like Jacob is one of these guys, but we don't know. We don't know. But yeah, let's just continue. Let's see which ones we can use as a back. Um, just wait a moment. I think this one. Alright, let's just continue on. My back still pressed up against the wall. I can hear someone walking at the other side of the hallway. Their footsteps squeak against the linoleum floor and echo off the walls. I'm pretty sure the person's alone. Pretty sure they're headed this way to the French room. But I'm also pretty sure that this isn't the same person who was following me from the dorm earlier. Those footsteps made a clumping sound like the boot heels. These are definitely sneakers. A flashlight beam shines down in this direction. I can't stay here. I look toward the exit lights on my right. There's a set of doors there. But whoever is approaching will probably be able to see me leave. The beam gets closer, and so do the footsteps. Past the main entrance now, on this side of the building, I can hear people moving in the French room, probably hearing the approaching footsteps as well. I step quickly past the open doorway and stand mid-hallway. I can't stay here. I know the flashlight beam will eventually make its way to me, catch me like a deer in headlights. Or Emma and Trish candles will be just enough to cast a shadow over my hiding body. Stacy, the loudspeaker crackles. I'm watching you. I step across the hallway and slip into the classroom. I crouch down behind the door and wait. My heart is beating so loud and fast I think it must be audible. I ball myself up tighter, my knees pressed into my chest and hold my breath. After what seems like several minutes of not hearing anything else, I inch my way from behind the door and remain crouched in the doorway. The flashlight beam is gone and everything seems vacant. I crawl toward the double doors and feel something beneath my fingertips. A stick of some sort. I feel around on the ground a bit more and find more of them. I pick one up and run my fingertip over the smooth buttery tip and paper wrapped around it. They're crayons. I swallow down the jittering inside me as best I can and push the doors ever so slightly. They make a moaning noise, but as though by some wonderful and all-knowing force, the scratch sound plays again over the loudspeaker and manages to drown it out, just enough for me to crawl through the crack I've made. I click on my flashlight and move as quickly and as quietly as possible down a set of stairs. Another pair of exit doors faces me, the ones that will lead me outside. I go to dive right through them, to run and get help. But it's like I'm frozen in place, nailed to the floor. I'm going to be sick. I hold the quake in my stomach, the juices gurgling, climbing their way up to my throat. What does this mean? What is this sickness trying to tell me? My head is throbbing, trying to make sense of everything. I take another step toward the exit doors and my mouth fills with the warmest, most pungent sour taste, like my body won't let me have it, won't let me leave. Like I have no choice but to go with my instincts. I turn to gaze down another flight of stairs, and that's when I know. When my nightmare unfolds all around me. This is the basement I dreamed about, and this is where my body is leading me, closer to Mara, to what she's trying to tell me. My mouth fills with a second helping of bile, causing my head to spin, for me to hunch forward and let it out, my throat burning now. I wipe my mouth and take a few steps down the stairs. There's a thick steel door at the bottom, a giant letter M scribbled across it. I pull it open to allow myself through, holding its weight behind me so it doesn't slam shut. A long, narrow hallway. I shine my light along the walls. Doors line both sides and overhead bulbs cast dim, yellowy light. I begin my way down, noting how the floors and walls are painted a deep green color, how the pipes leak over and make a puttering sound against the cement, how the lyrics to the Miss Mary Mac song have been scribbled on the walls along the way. I take a deep breath, reminding myself that Mora wouldn't be leading me to any danger she didn't think I could handle. My stomach bubbles up again, like I'm getting closer. There's a knocking, coming from the end of the hallway. I'm expecting it to be Mara, jumping rope, even though I know she's dead. I continue down the hallway, noticing the weathered, gray door at the very end, the one that faces me, the one from my nightmares. The knocking sound is coming from someplace around it, maybe from behind it. Hello, Stacy? It's Donovan's voice from the loudspeaker again. Welcome back. I bite down on my tongue to keep from crying out and grip over my ears, but the knocking sound gets louder. I'm watching you, he says. I'm shaking my head, trying to retain some sort of mindfulness. My stomach winces. Bile squirts up toward my throat. I bend at the waist and dry heave, my stomach now completely empty. I wipe my mouth with my sleeve, noticing how my cheeks are damp with tears. None of this makes sense. Maury is dead. Donovan is locked up. There's no way Corey and his group could have gotten him out. Plus, how is he related to my Morris nightmares? Why would he be waiting for me down here? Unless someone told him. Someone who knew all about my nightmares. Someone who could sense things about me and no one else knew. Stacy? A voice from just behind me. Jacob's voice. I turn around. He emerges from the steel door, letting it slam shut behind him. I knew I would find you here. He's pointing his flashlight beam right at me, so hard I have to block my eyes. Get away from me. I grip the crystal in my palm and ready myself to throw it. Stacy, you have to trust me. He takes a few steps closer. Just listen to me for a second. I'm not going to hurt you. Wait. Yeah, okay, so it says here that my memory is full, but anyway. You heard me, I shout. Jacob ignores. Let's just remove the filter. Jacob ignores my warning and lunges right at me. He moves He moves to grab the crystal, but I clench both hands around it and thrust with all my might up into his groin. Jacob buckles at the waist, but he doesn't go down. I look at his feet, the rubber-soled sneakers, just like the ones upstairs, the ones headed for the French room, for the seance. I take a step back and Jacob follows, still just inches from me. I swing toward his head, but he catches the punch and grapples to restrain me. The storming in my stomach ranges, inching up toward my throat again. I'm wasting time. I pull my neck back and plunge headfirst in his forehead in a headbutt. Jacob staggers back, tripping over his feet. He falls, hitting his head against the cement wall. I turn and run as fast as I can. Down the hallway, where the knocking continues, becomes more urgent. I twist and pull the doorknob with all my might, just in no use. But it's no use. It just won't budge. Drea! I shout into the door crack. Is that you? Are you in there? I pound and kick the door, jam my fingers into the crack until they bleed from splinters, until I've exhausted myself completely. There's no more knocking, just the pattering of water droplets against the floor. I crunch down against the door, and my throat fills with bile, causing me to choke, telling me that I can't give up, that I have to keep working. I get up and try the knob again, still locked. I take a deep breath and look around the framing of the door, noticing the ledge at the top. I reach up, run my fingers along it, and feel the key. My hand shaking slightly, I stick the key in the hole and jiggle around it until I hear the lock turn. It's dark inside. I shine my flashlight around the perimeter of the room with one hand and feels around the walls for a light switch with the other. My finger rubs over something sharp, a nail in the wall maybe. I poke my bleeding finger into my mouth and look around. It's a small custodian's workbench. To the right, with stools scattered all over it, shelves loaded with paint cans, cleaning buckets, the rubber gloves, and a large buffer machine in the center. But what attracts me the most is the collection of origami. Dozens of paper, frogs, fish, birds, and more line of metal shelves. My mouth turns dry and I heave, the breath catching in my throat, making me gag. A jump rope hangs from the hook at the back of the room. I move toward it and hear the door slam shut. I let my eyes close and try to listen to my body and my intuition, not to think or reason or make sense out of this all, not to fight. I know who it was. It's just like my mother and Jacob said. The truth lies in my past, and being here in this shed, the familiar smell of mild dew and must so thick in the air, the cracked cement walls. I feel like my past has been laid out all around me. Mora having to vomit, the henna drawings, the forgotten promise. It's not about Corey and his gang or Jacob or even Drea. It's about stopping it from ever happening again. Stopping him. That's why I'm here. That's what Mora is trying to help me do. He clicks the light switch on and I turn around to find him. Miles Parker. The man who abducted Mora that day. Who made her sick with his cherry brandy. Drove drunk into a tree and then carries her body off into the woods, leaving her in a tool shed until she died. That's the real thing, you know. He's pointing at the jump rope. The actual rope she was jumping on the day I picked her up. Wanna touch it? Wanna see if it still smells like her? I clench my flashlight and feel my jaw lock. I'll never forget it. He continues. She was jumping rope and singing that little song. The sidewalk around her all red from her crayon, from where she drew hearts and her favorite letter. He smiles and I feel myself swallow, the inside of my mouth now a bit more moist, less dry and pasty. Miles looked a lot different than the way he looked in the court. Older, scruffier, with sallow skin. His once sooty dark hair has grayed quite a bit as well. It curls over his ear and hangs past the nape of his neck. I'm a little disappointed you didn't keep your promise, he says. When you sent me that letter 4 years ago, I really expected you to follow through, to be waiting for my parole, to make me pay for what had happened. Such an angry little girl. He's wearing a custodial uniform, like he planned this whole thing out, finding me, getting a job here. That was a long time ago, I say, not noticing that he's also wearing a pair of work boots that have hard heels, same boots that were no doubt following me from the dorm. Like yesterday to me, he snaps. It's one of the things that kept me going. I wanted to meet the person who gave the police that anonymous tip. What are you talking about? I take a step back, bumping into the buffer machine. He smiles at me, his thin, chalky lips peeling back to reveal a chipped tooth in front. The tip that led them to me, to the tool shed where the body was found. I've been waiting for this moment for a long time. Stacy Brown. I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't give any anonymous tip. Your letters said otherwise. I think about it a moment. But it doesn't make sense. I didn't give any anonymous tip. I mean, I should have. I wanted to. But I didn't. The letter I sent him said that I only sent about the kidnapping, about where she was hidden. Any anonymous tip given to the police was from someone else. The letter didn't say that, I say. It only said I had a feeling about Mara being taken, about where she was hidden. Why don't I believe you? I take another step back, bumping into a collection of mops, my spine pressed up against the cement wall now. My friends are just upstairs, I say. They're going to be wondering where I am. I know they're not your friends, Stacy. They're my friends. They've been helping me. What do you mean? I feel my chin shake. I clench my teeth in an effort to halt the trembling. I've been watching you, Stacy, he pauses, and I've been watching them. I know how interested they are in you. That gave us something in common. Them and me. I thought getting a job here would be enough to get close to you, but getting to know them was an icing on the cake. Made things so much easier. What are you talking about? They told me about their plans for tonight, how they were going to get you here, how they wanted to try and recreate the scene from last year. They told me all about it, Stacy. You couldn't mind your own business then, okay? Either could you? I swallow hard and try leaning back a little further, as though the wall from the power to give way, but there isn't any room. I'm trapped. So what else could I do but help them? He continues. Give them access. I mean, here you are, just where I wanted you, and all I had to do was give them a key. What do you mean? What do you want? Payback, he says, taking another step, closing in on me. You're a snake, Stacy. You should have minded your own business. Should have kept your mouth shut. Do you have any idea what prison is like? What one has to do to occupy his time? To keep from going insane? I glance over his shoulder at the origami figures. Miles extends his hand to my chin to steal the glance back. I want to knock his hand away, but I don't. He towers over me. His weight is probably double mine. My mind races with what I should do. Bite his hand, try poking him in the eyes. Miles reaches up to grab the jump rope. He drapes it around his shoulder and runs the handle along my cheek. Don't worry, he says. Ropes aren't my style. I prefer to use my hands. That gift I left you was just a little clue. Like the tape player and the letters. Just little reminders. Could you sense that too, Stacy? The way I've been watching you? I didn't give any anonymous tip, I say, tears rolling down my cheeks. You have to believe that it wasn't me. I glanced to the left, spotting a hammer hanging on the wall. Miles straps the jump rope to the floor and places his thumbs at the front of my neck. I don't like people who break their promises. Stacy, I hate liars even more. I clench my teeth, wondering how I can stall him, what I could possibly say to change his mind, get him to see the truth. Miles dabs his fingers into my tears, a wide grin on his face as though amused by my fear. I close my eyes a moment and concentrate on the crystal cluster rack in my pocket, on the sachet of time, conjuring up the courage and I have, and then I knee him in the groin as hard as I can. Sm- Miles staggers back a bit, enabling me to lunge for the hammer. My fingers just shy of the handle, he grabs my arm and spins me around, pushes my back up against the wall. He pulls the hammer from its hook, and presses it into my cheek. Is this what you want? I shake my head and locks eyes with him. I need to be brave. I can't give up now. Just to my right, on the end of one of the shelves is a fire extinguisher. Miles prods the hammer deeper into my cheek, forcing my bite to part. The inside of my cheeks presses against the edges of my teeth, a burning, aching sensation. Feel good? He asks. I let out a cry. Miles moves the hammer from my cheek and glances to the side to toss it. At the same time, I reach out and grab the extinguisher from the shelf. I knock it against his head hard, a loud cracking noise. Miles takes a couple steps back, moves his hands up toward his head. I aim the nozzle toward him and compress the handle. Nothing happens. Miles goes to grab the extinguisher from me. His fingers wrap around the base. Mine are at the top, pulling at the thing with all my might. I feel my fingers slipping, losing grip. Miles steps forward to gain a better position. That's when I spot the extinguisher's pin. I dive into the extinguisher as though to tackle it, to pounce into the tug of war we've got going on between us. I twist and go plummeting onto the ground. My butt smacks against the cement flooring. But Miles' grip releases from the extinguisher and I aim it toward him, pull the pin and compress the handle. A dark yellowish powder shoots out at him, sticks in his eyes. I throw the extinguisher down and crawl toward the door, but it grips around my calf. I kick at his hand, plunge the heel of my shoe into his knuckles. Miles releases his grip and I go to reach up for the doorknob, but my fingers aren't quite long enough. I grapple up on my elbows to make it closer, but my fingers just graze the knob. Miles grabs my ankle and drags me backward. I turn to face him, on his knee now. He holds the hammer high above his shoulder. I hear myself scream. I scoot backward, away from him, but he just grabs at my ankle again and pulls me closer. He's blinking his eyes from the extinguisher dust like it's irritating him, settling into his eye sockets. I move slightly to the left toward the buffer machine, wondering if I'd able to push it at him, click it on my foot, and what that would do. That's when I spot the extinguisher just inches from my leg. The hammer is still positioned high above his head. Miles seems almost wobbly on his knees. He moves his hand from my ankle and goes to rub his eyes. I lean forward, grab the extinguisher, and shoot it at him again. A strong and steady stream and knocks him backward. I scoot back, reach up for the doorknob, this time able to grasp it, but I'm still too far away to turn the knob or push the door again. I look back at Miles, who has regained his balance. Back on his knees, he lunges toward me, swinging the hammer wildly. I plowed to the right to avoid it. The hammer plunges into the door and reach up for the knob again and turn and push. The door cracks open a couple inches. Miles grabs at my ankle to hold me in place just as the door whips open completely. A pack of police officers bursts in. I feel myself being dragged up, moved to the side out of the way. It's Jacob. I hesitate a moment, thinking how many minutes ago I had suspected him. He wraps his arms around me, and instead of analyzing it, I just go with it. I allow myself to collapse in his embrace, trusting in my heart what I know is true. Are you okay? He asked. I'm breathing so hard that I just can't answer. A few moments later, the officers, including Mr. Abercrombie and Fitch, emerge from the custodial room and with Miles in handcuffs. Miles looks in my direction, but his eyes are so covered with dust. I'm not sure what he sees. It's over, Jacob says. I press myself against him like I never want to let go, hoping more than anything that he's right. Now we are. Chapter 45. It's busy in front of the O'Brien building when we get outside. Hanover police cruisers, campus administrators, and curious students collect about the place. My mother is the first to emerge from the crowd of people. Thank God you're okay, she says, wrapping her arms around me. I hug her back with everything inside me. It feels so good to hold her this way. So long overdue. How did you know I was here? I just knew, she says, kissing the top of my head. She looks around over my shoulders. He must be Jacob. Jacob takes a step forward to shake her hand. Thank you, she says, her eyes all black and running from mascara. I didn't really do much. I wanted to do more. You did everything, she says. You trusted your senses and you followed through on them. That's more than a lot of people would have done. I hug my mother again, feeling completely restored by what she's feeling or what she's saying. Like maybe she's having second thoughts about using our senses to help others. I just hope someday you can forgive me for not helping you. My mother's once tiny bird wings wrap around me, so much stronger than before. I hug her even tighter, a trickle of tears sliding down the creases of my face, and tell her that I do forgive her. Hey, Mrs. B. PJ says, interrupting us. He and Amber just stand behind us. Oh my God, how's Drea? I ask. She's fine, Amber says, a bit freaked, but fine. But you, on the other hand, Miss Drew, PJ says. Your phone messages scared the Crayola out of us. Thank you for calling the police, I say. I called them, my mother says. I just had a feeling, an intuition. Well, thanks to all of you. Are you kidding? Amber says, I should thank you. You scored me a date with one of Hillcrest's finest. What are you talking about? Who else but the cutie patootie police officer from the hangman the other night? Mr. Abercrombie and Fitch. Really, Amber? PJ says. This trying to make me jealous routine is getting so old and pasty. He picks some of the yellow extinguisher dust from my shoulders and sprinkles it over his hair. Cool color. You're such a freak show, Amber says to him. Correction, PJ says. Freak show are those science clonies. They got their sorry asses dragged out of here without this weight. Not to mention immediate expulsion. And Donovan, where is he? I shiver, just mentioning his name. Not here, PJ says. Only his voices. When the clonies got all groupie and went to visit him at the detention center, they recorded his voice and pieced it together to suit their twisted needs. Just ask Miss Donna Tillings over there. She's scooping it all to the police. When the clone head ghost groupers got too freakish on her, she bailed on their plans. Maybe she isn't as dweeboid as I thought. Those guys deserve more than expulsion, Jacob says. So right you are, wise one, PJ says. I'm just glad I was sensible enough not to let my bad ass get snugged up in their play. Oh yeah, you're sensible. My mother stands beside me. I talk briefly to the police. It seems Corey and his group didn't even know I was in the building yet. They were waiting for me, getting all prepared for the seance and testing Donovan's tape over the loudspeaker until I arrived. It was Miles Parker following me to the O'Brien building from the door. Apparently, he's been working as a custodian here for a few weeks, which might explain how some of the windows and doors kept getting unlocked. But obviously, Miles Parker wasn't involved in the seance or anything, I say. He was just using Corey get and them to get me here, right? The officer nods, just like they were using him for the key. Mr. Parker has no interest in contacting spirits. Just creating new ones, Amber says. She rests her chin on his perfectly bulgy arm and bats her fluorescent orange eyelashes up at him. In the near distance, I spot Chad and Drea. They're sitting side by side on one of the benches. Chad's Letterman jacket draped over Drea's shoulders, like an after-school special come to life, exactly the way it should be. Drea sees me as well. She gets up and comes and circles her arms around me. I was so scared. Are you okay? I will be, I say. And you? Did they hurt you? She shakes her head. I'm more embarrassed than anything. I was so totally stupid, Stacy. She proceeds to tell me how earlier tonight a teary-eyed Emma asked her to take a walk with her around campus. Between sobs and nose blows, Emma told Drea that Corey had broken up with her tonight. She said she needed to get some air, couldn't bear to sit still in her room, and thought a little walk around the campus might do her some good, take her mind off things. And even though Drea and Emma are hardly the best of friends or even friends for that matter, Drea felt bad for her and didn't want her to go home, to have to go alone. Only once the two of them got near the O'Brien building, they weren't alone. Drea with pepper spray dragged her into the building and then locked her up in one of the classrooms. I just sort of freaked, Drea said, and then soon as I heard Donovan's voice, I started going into panic attack mode. It was like last year all over again. I'm just so glad you are okay, I say, hugging her once more. Thank you, she says. You're always there when I need you. I'll always try to be. I glance over at Chad. He's got his hands tucked deep in his pockets, making small talk with Jacob. He looks up at me at the same time. I move toward him and we just sort of stand there, staring at each other. You scared me, he says. Sorry, I say. No, I'm the one who's sorry. I should have believed you. I should have taken everything more seriously. I can be such an ass sometimes. I shrug. Maybe I should have done things differently too. He takes me into his arms and kisses by my ear. I love you, you know that? No matter what happens between us. No matter what happens. No matter what happens? Exactly, he says. I nod and kiss his cheek, knowing fully well what he means. I love you too, I say, and I mean it. I do love Chad. I love him enough to know that he and Drea belong together. Friends? I say. Always. He hugs me one last time before joining Drea back on the bench. So, my mother says, standing by my side again. She's shaking a mix of fear and nervousness, baby, like I've never seen in her before. Her mouth is quivering and her eyes are completely filled. She sniffles a couple times to try and gain composure. Shall we make some plans for tomorrow? I could call you. You're crying, I say, noting how even the bravest of smiles cannot hide the way she really feels. I'm just so relieved that you're okay, she says, swiping at her tears, and I'm so proud of you. Well, I'm pretty proud of you too. I wrap my arms around her once more. Thank you for everything. No, she says. Thank you. She grips me extra tight. I love you. I want you to know that. I do know it, I say, and I love you too. So sweet, Amber sings, interrupting us, like a Hallmark card, and you care enough to squeeze the very best. Very cute, I say. Stace, You must be super starving after upchucking so much chow this past week. So does this mean you won't have to worry about any more heinous side effects? For now, anyway. So how about we celebrate your barflessness with a little Denny's run? I could so go for a lumberjack slam. Is that supposed to sound appetizing? You're welcome to come too, Mrs. B. Amber adds. I'm a little tired, my mother says, but thanks anyway. She waves goodbye before getting in her car and driving away. I'm tired too, I say, peeking over at Jacob. He's waiting for me on the sidelines. Oh yeah, I get it, Amber says, giving me an exaggerated wink. Just do me a fave and hang a garter or something on the doorknob if you're a little preoccupado. A garter? She rolls her eyes. Leave it to you to not own one stitch of chick. My dresser, top drawer on the left, but the leopard print one with tassels is totally off limits. You're crazy, I say. Jacob and I are just going to talk. Knowing you, you're probably right. While Amber, PJ, Chad, and Dre head off to Danny's, I joined Jacob on a walk back to the dorms. It's absolutely frigid, and well past midnight, Jacob removes his coat and blankets it over my shoulders. I'm sorry I hit you, I say. Are you okay? I'll survive. I may never walk again straight, but at least I'll survive. I just wish I had trusted you. Well, I hope you can trust me now. He stops, and I look up at him, into his pale blue eyes and the strong set of his jaw, and feel my cheeks turn warm and pink. How did you know where to find me? I ask. I just knew, he says, wiping a strand of hair from my face. I dreamed it, remember? I swallow hard and look down, my palms all sweaty from nerves. Why are we stopping? He nods toward my dorm. Because we're here. Oh yeah, I say, just noticing it. Well, thank you for everything. Maybe you'll stick around? I mean, I know you've done what you came to do, and I know it must have been hard for you to just drop everything and move here. You must have a lot of friends back in Colorado. Jacob smiles and takes a step closer, so close I can feel the warmth of his breath against my lips. How could I leave? He asks. I look back at him, and my heart starts strumming inside my chest, even harder than before. I guess you can't. We find ourselves back in my room, sitting on the floor with the chunky white candle my grandmother gave me between us. I unscrew the cap of my bottle of rose oil and pour a few droplets onto my fingers. The lush scent fills the air around us, reminding me of balmy beach nights, of hot passion fruit tea with dripping honey. I sweep my oily fingers down the length of the candle to consecrate it as above, I say. Jacob dabs his fingers with the oil and then runs them down the opposite side of the candle, so below. We continue taking turns moistening around the circumference of the candle until it fully anointed. Then I light a couple starter candles, one for each of us, and together Jacob and I use them to ignite the white candle. Blessed be, I say, looking up at Jacob as he extinguishes our starter candles with a snuffer. Blessed be, he repeats. We sit there, our eyes locked on one another for several seconds. I know in my heart we're both thinking the same thing. Jacob leans forward over the candle, the shadow of the flame dancing against his bottom lip. I lean forward to meet him as well. It's a kiss full of promise, of trust, and of all that is magic. The end. Okay, so I would be posting my final thoughts in Spotify in my podcast, Talk Your Thought. But I think I just think that there could have been more to it. Like yes, the twists and turns, like it's I like how I like how Dory has narrated it, and I kind of like manipulated how the readers would actually feel about and who could we possibly have as suspects. Miles Parker was not mentioned until the very last part of the the story. Like he was the one who kidnapped Mara and so on, and also the promise that he made to Miles Parker when he was sentenced. But that is mostly it, and I doubted Jacob so much because it's so weird, and until now I just don't know. I feel like yeah, I'm just not a big fan of this. I'm not a big fan of the romance part of the White is for Magic. But as for the mystery and how the storytelling was done in the novel, it was actually good. I think it's okay. It's good. It's just that yeah, I did not see that coming because I don't know about Mora's story. Yeah, and the plot twist was it was not Donovan. It was just a recording and so on. But the romance revolving all of this, because it is part of the I'm focusing on it as well because this is part of the trailer, the teaser part behind the book. So I'm thinking that maybe the story would have made more sense to me. But the way that this happened, of course, I also still do believe that there are some stories out there, real life stories out there, that when you spend a life in that situation with someone, you would really most likely fall for that person on a deeper level. Like it could have been romance, but it could also be like form a very deep friendship. If you're going to be conquering a lot of things together, especially in the situation of Stacy. She almost died by the hands of Miles Parker during that time. So yes, it made sense, but the things happening before that doesn't really make sense to me. So we don't know. Maybe Jacob is just more concerned and has fallen to the person in that dream of his. We don't know yet. I'll just be thinking through about the story more and have a deep dive on the Talk Your Thoughts series, and I'll just have my final thoughts in there in my Read With Me series, The White is for Magic, the finale. And I really enjoyed doing this. I'll be doing this with more books, and I hope I'll just be ending this one. It's already an hour 43 minutes, so I just hope I'll be hearing all of you again next time. And sorry about the technical difficulties with the stream today. This is my first time using this app, but if ever that it doesn't work out, I'm just going to do the standard YouTube live. But anyway, thank you all for listening, and I will be doing some more Read With Me again next time. Give me some suggestions down below.